How would you make your house the most famous house in Britain?
Oh, that's easy.
Yep.
You murder lots and lots of people, dismember them, and bury them in the garden.
You marry the Queen. You marry the Queen.
Yes.
And you say, you're not living there in those... No, love, you're not living in those palaces anymore.
You're living in 3 Ironside Crescent,
Yes.
Carlisle.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Those would work. Yep, those would work.
Some sort of spectacular suicide? I suppose, actually, the murdering people would work better, which I think is sad.
But this is a bet.
Balloons? Is it like in the film, Up? You just tie loads of balloons and your house goes...
Oh, that would be sweet. That would
Yeah.
work. This was a bet that took place in 1810 between Samuel Beazley and Theodore Hook. That Hook couldn't make any house he chose the most famous residence in London in 1 week. He had a week in which to do it, but in fact he sort of... I mean, he prepared over the week, but it all happened in one day.
This.
Yeah?
He started ordering goods, all kinds of different goods from all kinds
4,000 different tradesmen and services in all the commercial directories all over London. He started ordering chimney sweeps. So first thing in the morning, there were 12 chimney sweeps, all arriving like that. And then more and more and more and more and more arrived. I mean, it became absolutely gigantic. 12 coal carts, there were cake makers, doctors, apothecaries, surgeons, lawyers, priests for dead bodies, undergraduates, hat makers, haberdashers, bootmakers, fishmongers, butchers' boys. A dozen pianos arrived. And before long, the governor of the Bank of England had turned up to see what the fuss was about. It was in Berners Street, just off north of Oxford Street. And there it is.
That sign doesn't fit that bit of wall.
It doesn't really. And yet, I suppose if they put it the way it would, you'd have to read it in portrait rather than
just needed to go
landscape.
back to the drawing board with that one.
I think you're right.
Got that all wrong.
Or just chill out about the whole thing.
I could have folded it round, mate.
Is it a bit like... So the equivalent is like going on the internet and ordering the lot?
Yes, exactly.
I love everything.
Exactly, basically. And the poor woman whose name was Mrs. Tottenham was just besieged. I mean, it wasn't his house.
He didn't live there.
No, he chose it. No, he just chose this house. That was the point of the bet. I can make that house, 54 Berners Street, the most famous house in London. Theodore Hook betted a man called Beazley that he could make 54 Berners Street the most famous house in London. Why did it take 300 years to give the giant tortoise a scientific name?
A scientific name?
Yeah, i.e. the Latin name. It turned out to be called Geochelonia, you know.
Is it because they just thought that was pretty good, giant tortoise?
We'll leave it with that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah?
no, I was going to say something about which now it's unusable. I'm going to have to say it now.
Go on, go with it, man.
They thought...
It's better be
They
good.
thought it was a normal tortoise, but closer, was what I was going to say. You see what I mean? But I couldn't get that concept. It's like, would it be actually further away? And a normal one further away would be actually a minute one. Would they mistake a quite far away normal one for a miniaturised one that's a bit...
Yeah, but the thing that you're saying is that the tortoise can be...
It's a certain way. If they said...
I like it. Oh, go that way.
Yeah. If there was like a tortoise over there that was giant, but for some reason thought it was just there, then I wouldn't think it was giant. I'd think it was just, oh, there's just one there. It was just a normal tortoise there, nothing about that. Oh my God, it's over there and it's back!
It would have to be on a huge beach with no other points of reference.
Well, yes, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
Are they...
That's not the reason.
Are they, are they particularly litigious? Now, if you give me a name, I will sue you.
No, it wasn't that. It's a nice thought again. No, they had another property which was most unfortunate for them to have.
What, the tortoises did?
Yeah.
They were edible.
They were so edible. Anyone, I mean...
Anyone who saw one couldn't stop to think of a name for it. They just had to eat it straight away.
Really one of those...
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
they're cool.
Do you know...
Just get one. They're really very good.
There's no
We just call
Latin
them
name for the
dinner.
pistachio nut. Exactly the same way. No one can be bothered. Just shut up with your Latin. Eat them. They're brilliant.
That's what happened.
No Latin name for Maltesers.
None of them made it. It's kind of true. None of them made it to London. None of them made it to Europe.
Now this time, we're going to take it and we'll take London.
Leave it. No.
However,
Take it back. going into Dover, there's a bloke going... leaving the door with a tortoise instead.
All right, look. Take 9 of them. We'll eat 8.
And everyone's looking at it and going, come on.
And then the seas become... The days on end, the seas become, there's one tortoise left.
Yeah.
Come on, sir. Come on, we'll go back. Let's just go back and get some more.
Imagine the moment after they've eaten that last tortoise. They're sitting there thinking, we are twats. I'm too full.
Even Darwin, on Darwin's last book. There were dozens.
He collected every species in the world and ate that one.
They had them all. They did.
I've done all those, done all the butterflies, done all the beetles. I'm eating that.
The only descriptions of them are comparing them to chicken, beef, mutton and butter and saying they're how much better they are than all of those things. No one who'd ever eaten tortoise had ever eaten anything better.
Why are they not
and the liver and the bone marrow, every part of it was unbelievably
Whereabouts
delicious.
are they from?
Well, from the tropics
Are
mostly.
there flights over there?
They are now protected. All 12
If they're
species.
that delicious, they can't be. Well, they just say, yeah, we've protected them. They're all in there. No need to look. Yeah, they're fine.
There's a border around them, like North Korea.
Yeah. There's a big pile of shells, like those piles of tyres you see in a scrapyard.
But there were some that survived, however, and let me tell you about a very extraordinary
That
one.
bloke there, he's just befriending that one. Yeah, come over here, my pretty. I'm trying to think of a name for you.
But they are amazing animals, apart from how delicious they are. Adwaita died in 2006, and he was Clive of India's pet. There he is.
Oh, they're 200 years old or something.
255. He was born before Mozart, before the French Revolution, and his death was announced on CNN. I mean, that's a heck of a life,
And you can list his achievements on the back of a stamp.
Well, why would he need to
Well, his
achieve
principal
anything?
achievement is it wasn't
He lived 255 years. People think probably the oldest living creature because they don't live so long out of captivity like most animals, and he was, well cared for. But that is a pretty astonishing
It is
lifespan.
quite... So it lived 255 years and is massive. I mean, I've achieved 50% of that. That's great.
There are 12 species of them, all of them endangered. Well,
They
one.
all taste nice.
Well, I don't know, but it's very sad that they have so many were other species were, basically wiped out just because they were so lovely. Not only that, they were also used as water stores. It sounds a weird thing, but they have a special kind of internal bladder that stores water so perfectly that it's drinkable. When you slit them open to cook them, you also get, like a gallon of fresh water.
Wow.
So they would stack them up on boats, tons of them. They'd be stacked up, one on the other, and they couldn't move. And they didn't need to be fed for months, so that they actually contributed a lot to whaling and other things because they were used as a foodstuff and a water supply that was just kind of permanent.
So you've got the
on board.
water as well. And imagine if you smash the shell open, there's like a little toy in there, like a Kinder. Like a little game, you've got to get the balls in the holes.
So how do they exist in the wild anyway, if they're so delicious and slow-moving and massive and useful?
They didn't have any natural predators until man discovered them, basically.
Right. So they were evolutionarily complacent.
They were exactly like a lot of island species. They're a lot like that, and it's only man who crosses islands in the way we do
All those
who does it.
ridiculous flightless birds on New Zealand.
Yeah,
Essentially, they got lazy.
yeah.
They got lazy. What's the point in flying? Now, some of them go, we'll need it one day. I bet we'll need it one day. Nah. You're too anal, you are. Just walk around, it's easier.
Yeah. Anyway, despite being discovered in 1535, giant tortoises weren't properly catalogued by science until the early 19th century because they were so delicious that no samples ever made it back home. What conclusion did the great biologist Steven J Gould draw from a lifetime study of fish?
Oh,
Yeah.
they haven't got any legs.
Is that his lifetime study?
Well, no, it wasn't his lifetime study of a fish.
He was
After a while, they smell.
He's a bit thick and he just stared at me and they haven't got any legs.
Starfish don't have brains. It's the kind of Louis Walsh of the aquatic world. They really don't have brains, they're starfish.
And they're not really fish, are they, starfish, to be honest?
Well, the word fish is in there, which kind of qualifies them, I think.
Well, is a starfish a fish? Is a jellyfish a fish? Is a cuttlefish a fish?
Yes,
is
I believe
horse a horse.
But the starfish...
crayfish is a lobster.
There's a division, isn't there, in the world, whether it should be down to sort of experts in biology, whether things are fish, or whether it should be down to menus.
Yes.
Certainly, for example, a crayfish comes under fish in a menu.
He looks like he's reading the sell-by date on that.
He does. Steven J Gould was very great. He's dead now. He's very great. He won a Nobel Prize. He was a paleontologist and an extraordinary biologist. And he came to a conclusion which is...
They can feel no love.
No, that there is no such thing as a fish. A fish has no biological meaning. There is just...
Oh, that's so... I'm absolutely right. Go with menus.
On a menu it does. But in a menu, a fish is not the same as shellfish or seafood, is it?
It often comes in the same bit and separate from pudding.
Things that live in the sea.
Fish and pudding are different.
Yeah.
How can something not be something? Something can't be not something, can it? But if you've created a something, then something has to be that something, otherwise you haven't created a something. So it has to be a fish if there is the idea of a fish in the first
I
place.
swear there's a philosophy somewhere.
Slow down, Plato.
There's some sort of ontological argument going there, and of course, to us, that we use the word fish. But biologically speaking, a salmon is more related to, say, a camel than it is to a hagfish. Like, there are lots of things that fly, like a bumblebee flies, a vulture flies, and there are flying lizards. They're not all birds.
No.
But we call things that swim in the sea fish, and actually, biologically, evolutionarily, they have absolutely nothing to do with each other at all. So, after a lifetime study of fish, biologist Steven J Gould concluded that there's no such thing as a fish. Would you believe that they put a man on the moon?
Who? Hey, these guys?
NASA.
Oh, NASA. Yes, yeah, I think
course.
You believe that?
Yeah.
I believe it.
Yes, you believe it. Good, that's all. That's sort of all at the end of the question, really. But you probably know that quite a lot of people don't believe it.
No.
Yeah, but, well, I sort of believe one thing,
Yeah.
which is I kind of believe that they might have done some mocked-up fake photographs.
Really, why?
Because I was... someone convinced me of it.
Yeah.
by talking about the angle of light and the shadows on the moon and all that. But then I did an advert with Patrick Moore, and I said, "So, Patrick, did they land on the moon?" And he looked so annoyed with me.
Yeah.
Actually, he explained to me how he had helped map the moon for NASA, and he'd spent years on the project, and the landing site was partly his idea. And if I ever spoke to him again, he was going to be sick in my eyes.
They are rather tight. If you'd spoken to Buzz Aldrin, he might have punched you.
I was going to say...
Buzz Aldrin punched someone because he just got so tired of these conspiracy arses.
I think it was a television documentary about...
Well, there have been several, of course.
You know, look at this photo. This couldn't possibly have been taken on the moon. This is obviously taken in a studio.
You're getting me started now because one gets very sort of strange about this. But there are a lot of conspiracies. 6% of Americans believe that man didn't land on the moon, but 25% of Britons believe that they didn't. So that's a quarter of our nation are not convinced, apparently.
That's so depressing.
Isn't it?
It is.
The flag, it's one of the things I read...
the flag is another thing,
yes. The flag, and you think,
but there it is.
Well, obviously they've starched the flag because they wanted to get a good photograph of it. They've stiffened the flag.
No, they haven't stiffened it. That's the point. The fact it's rumpled. There's no breath of wind out there, obviously, because you're in space, which is, as it were, a vacuum. But what there is movement. If you impart movement to something, it doesn't stop moving for a long time because there's there's no resistance against it. So they unpacked it, unfurled it, put it down, and it moved back and forth. People said, breeze. Ha ha. As if, A, they would be stupid enough to fake it and allow the tape that had the breeze in it to go out.
But also, if you went to the moon, the least you'd expect is a flag moved a bit strangely. You know what I mean? You expect him to make the soup dragon, and you think, OK, he's not there. The flag moves a bit strangely, I can go with that.
Yeah. Why isn't one of them holding up a camera? Because you can see him reflected, the one taking the picture's reflected in the visor of the one, and he's not holding up a camera like that, you see. But that's because they didn't, in the visors, put a camera up in front of their visor. They were mounted.
You couldn't really actually imagine them getting a camera out, click,
like that.
wind it up.
I'd like to go to the moon.
You would like?
Oh,
I'd like to do that.
Yeah. I mean, two of the other things, just in case people are saying, but you haven't mentioned the clincher. One was the idea that that below the lunar module that landed, there was no crater or sense of disturbed dust. The fact is, the engine's cut off and it hovered down and it very, very quickly landed. And unlike in science fiction films, it doesn't send out spears of flame as it descends. That just didn't happen. So,
because it was designed by, you know, human brains and geniuses, and not a lot of people sitting tapping away at the internet who've got to go up to work in the morning.
Yeah,
who do you trust here?
We are in trouble as a species if people refuse to believe in things that they couldn't actually do themselves.
so true.
Yeah,
So true. And the other one was the footprints. They said, oh, look, there's too much moisture because look how clear they are. Only a sort of caked mud could do that, but actually you could do that with flour. The fact is, it's just very fine ground, and it makes... And there's, of course, it's a vacuum again. It coheres. And the other thing with the mirrors that Apollo 12 astronauts put on the moon, which are now used for bouncing lasers off, for detecting, for example, how far the moon is getting away from us. And you can make incredibly accurate measurements because of mirrors on the surface of the moon. And perhaps to me the clinching one is that America's enemy at the time in the space race was the Soviet Union. And not once did they make a suggestion that they thought America hadn't done it. They never said, no, we know this was hoax.
Yeah.
The fact is, for every ill-conceived argument that the moon landings were a hoax, there's a perfectly logical explanation to put our minds at rest. Tell me, what good did the Great Fire of London do?
Pretender. I'm risking it here, but I don't care. Wiped out the plague.
Oh, dear It was taught in school, so you've got every reason to think it, but it's just simply not true. There's no evidence whatsoever. Apart from anything else, the plague was already over.
Well, yeah, but it wiped out the conditions in which it could have come back.
Not really, because the plague was mostly in the suburbs, not in the city. The city was not the place that was most affected by the plague, but it was the place that was destroyed by the fire. By the time September 1666 happened, which was the fire, there were very few deaths. It had gone down to... It had almost ended. No one quite knows why it ended, but it certainly wasn't the fire.
Did it make it easier for them to knock down a load of places that they had their eye on?
Essentially, that's the point. It gave the chance to Christopher Wren to get some church building done, especially St Paul's, of course.
So they had lots of grandiose plans about turning London into a grid or a spiral or that, and then they kind of thought about it for ages and then went, put it back as it was.
Yes.
You know, all squiggly lines and weird corners, please.
Yeah, which we have. It is one of the
Yeah, but I think Christopher Wren was a bit depressed about it.
Yeah. Well, the best thing about the Great Fire of London was that it got Wren an opportunity to build St Paul's. Just how great were the great train robbers?
Well, they're not that great because they got caught.
Well, yeah. I mean, they got so caught. They got caught almost immediately.
Yeah.
And they got caught in very stupid ways. Do you know how they were caught? They went to this farm and played Monopoly using the stolen money as their Monopoly money. And then they cleared out and left their fingerprints over everything, over all the Monopoly set. And they were all, you know, they all had form. They were all, you know, known blaggers. So they were just rounded up, all 12 of the gang of 15. One was acquitted, 2 were never caught. They were pretty inept, is the answer, basically. Who's the most famous of the great train robbers, would you say?
Ronnie Biggs.
Ronnie, you've also said Ronnie Biggs, yeah. And what was his role? Was he the mastermind? Is that why he's the best known?
No.
No, he was such a small peg in the whole thing.
Was he the driver?
No, he wasn't even that. He was inside. He was doing a stretch for taking and driving away. And the mastermind of the entire event met him and said, I'm planning this blag.
I'm planning a game of Monopoly.
Yeah.
He's just got to pick something up on the way.
Yes,
It's my set, I've lost all the fake money. And the only way of replacing it I can think of...
I've run Waddingtons, they didn't want to know. Get a new set, they said. Don't be ridiculous, I said.
Anyway, the mastermind was called Bruce Reynolds. And he said, if you can find me someone who can drive a train, a diesel train, I will cut you in on a big job that's going down.
You can find... I mean, it's not... That's like... I mean, that's not like someone who can sort of melt diamonds with their eyes. Someone who can drive a diesel. Apparently they exist somewhere.
But the amazing thing, David Mitchell, is that Biggs found this guy whose nickname was Old Pete or Stan Agate. No one knows who he was because he was the one who was never caught.
Was that Old Pete the train driver?
I know. For his job...
After Casey Jones had turned him down.
Yeah. For this, for being found, Ronnie Biggs got a share worth 147,000, which in today's money is 1.6 million. And all he had to do, Ronnie Biggs, was get this guy, Old Pete, to the scene. But this old Pete got to the train and said, oh, I don't know how to drive that. Well, Big still got his share, but old Pete was useless. He couldn't drive a train. He'd been lying all the time.
I like the idea that old Pete's like those actors who put on their CV. Yes, I can horse ride. Oh, yes, I can drive a train. I speak Mandarin too. Train through China, no problem at all.
That's how he found him. He went through Spotlight. And the other, apparently, he was very well reviewed in Much Ado About Nothing last year.
And he's trained in modern dance. That could come in handy. Well, the great train robbers weren't particularly great. Most of them were caught because they left fingerprints on the Monopoly set at the safe house. What was the lingua franca of ancient Rome?
Great balls of fire.
Dutch. I knew that's not going to come up.
Yeah, very good, yeah.
See, that's where you've got to think, Joe. You've got to think what they wouldn't put up.
Cheers, Sean. Latin.
Oh!
I did that deliberately.
Yeah, I know.
At this point,
She's
it makes...
going for the record.
Yeah, it makes
no
sense.
difference.
You're
Yeah, you
Go
might as well.
at it.
It's like
Man.
shooting the moon when you play hearts or one of those
Oh, it's
games,
such a brilliant game.
isn't it?
Yeah.
What does lingua franca mean?
When people get together, it's a language that is commonly used as like everybody's second language, as it were.
Is it Greek?
Yes, it is Greek. It's the right answer. Greek is the language that people would use in Rome if they weren't Latin.
Thank you for watching.